Financial Renaissance with the M's. She's be my wife's song. Doom. Hey, listen. Before the break, I was talking about the numbers that you need to know. We discussed Mexico's exports. 80% of those are shipped to the U.S. One of the things I want to say about Mexico, and Trump was, I guess, was on TV last week saying that he never wouldn't call the FBI and blah blah blah. But listen, y'all, don't be fooled. I don't know if you remember when he called the FBI because El Chapo's son had clapped back at him. He was on Twitter being a little Twitter warrior before he was president. This was probably like 2014, 2015, and had some not so nice stuff to say about El Chapo. And while El Chapo was on the lam after he escaped, and El Chapo's son dug into him, and Trump quickly called the FBI because he didn't want to mess with them. So, FYI, you're not a real thug. All right, let's look into our market movers and losers. Okay, market movers and losers. All right, top gainers of the Dow this week. United Healthcare Group was up 1.8%. ExxonMobil Corporation was up 1.4%. Verizon Communications, can you hear me now, was up 0.7%, and Walmart was up 0.7% as well. And then rounding off the top five was Nike, up 0.6%. Our losers this week. And again, remember, look at your 401ks. There may be some opportunities, but Walt Disney was down 1.3%. Dow Incorporated was down 1.2%. United Technologies Corporation was down 1%. Home Depot down 0.9%, and Walgreens Boots Alliance was down 0.8%. The Dow Jones U.S. Home Construction Index, and again, paying attention to what happens with home construction, because that's an indication for us as to whether or not building is still happening. When building slows down, that means that we are getting closer to the recession. Okay, so for the past month, the Dow U.S. Home Index Construction Index was down 2.76%, and for the last week it was down 6.22%. So things are starting to slow down. Overall, the numbers are still looking pretty positive and healthy, but looking at the last month and the last week, looks like we're coming into a little bit of a slow. So looking at what's been happening overall with the different markets, the Dow Jones Industrial Average finished down at 26,719. The Nasdaq Composite Index was also down to 8,031. The S&P 500 Index was also down to 2950, and the Russell 2000 Index also down to 1,549. Now, the U.S. Treasuries, the 10-year Treasury was up. It went up to 2.6%, and the 2-year Treasury was also, I guess this was down to 1.77%. So these two numbers haven't inverted. As a matter of fact, the spread has gotten a little wider, which is a positive sign. So it doesn't look like the recession is happening today. All right, sneakerheads, what are your stocks doing? That's right. Let's look at Nike. Nike was up to $87.75. Adidas was down to 268 euros. Puma was also down to 55.6 euros. Under Armour was down to $23.10. Skechers was down to $31.34, and the Foot Locker was up, closing at $42.27. So again, it's cool to buy sneakers. It's cool to have your sneaker collection, but the other way to get involved in the sneaker game is also to own the stock of sneakers. So if you have a young person that's into, sneakers and Adidas and Nikes and all this stuff, a gift that you can give them to teach them about the stock market is to buy one share or 10 shares or whatever you can afford. Buy a share of that stock for a young person or a teenager or a young adult, so that it's not just about being a consumer and buying consumer goods. It's also about owning a piece of something, because these companies pay dividends. So for each share of stock that you own, a little bit of money comes back to you. And this is something that we need to teach our young people, how to be owners and not just consumers. That's right. All right. So going into our top five. Are we ready for my top five stories? No, we're not quite ready for my top five stories. All right. So some of the other things that have been happening in the world have to do with let's see, our president. don't really like talking about them, but there's a lot of confusion that's going to be happening. Looks like things with China may have calmed down a little. It looks like the president and the Chinese president, Yi, I believe is how you pronounce his name, are going to have a meeting, a play date. And if they have a play date and the Chinese president says some really nice stuff, then maybe the markets won't react negatively to the tariffs. There are already tariffs in place. There are already tariffs that are hurting us, and again, it's us, the U.S. consumers. So we're hoping